Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope your holiday weekend is off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. The Browns also have the weekend off. Then next week, back to work getting ready for the Panthers. But the Cavs, a big trade yesterday and a little bit of a surprise as the Cavs acquired Donovan Mitchell from the Utah Jazz, an all-star. And in the deal, the Cavs give up Lowry, Markkanen, Ochabi, the rookie that they took from Kansas City, Colin Sexton, 3 unprotected first-round picks. They also swap 2 picks, but the Cavs get another young superstar, all-star caliber guard in Donovan Mitchell from the Jazz. Let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Sam, 1, are you surprised? And 2, what are the Cavs getting in Donovan Mitchell?
First of all, yeah, I was stunned when I saw this news broke. We had heard last week that the Cavaliers had an interest in Mitchell, had engaged with Utah in some talks. Then we heard at the end of the week that they removed themselves from the talks, and that was really the last we heard. And then all of a sudden, you know, all the news was surrounding the Knicks talks with the Jazz, and then the Knicks signed R.J. Barrett to a contract extension, ending their talks with the Jazz, or at least pausing them. And Kobe Altman from the Cavs just swooped in and started talking, revisiting talks with the Jazz, and pulled off a deal. Surprisingly, I think it was a surprise to everybody, not just the general public and the fans, but probably to the players that got traded and were involved in the trade. So, obviously you went out and Donovan Mitchell got a 3-time All-Star, a guy who is just so dynamic, plays off the ball, can play, he and Darius Garland can share ball handling duties, both can play off the ball. Mitchell's just a dynamite athlete, and you look at his stats, I mean, all across the board, points, rebounds, assists, steals, he does it all. So, they now have, if you look at this, the Cavs now have 3 players who were in the All-Star game last year. When you talk Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, they have a guy who was a candidate for Rookie of the Year who could be an All-Star this next season, and Evan Mobley. And then you have a guy in Karis LeVert who scored 40 points in his final game as an Indiana Pacer. So, they have a ton of firepower, but I think, once Cavs fans regularly see Mitchell, which they probably didn't do a lot while he was in Utah, they're going to be really, really pleased. He's a very dynamic player.
So, again, Adrian Wojnarowski, a respected national basketball writer who kind of broke the news, tweets this out as well. Suddenly, Cavs are a major force in the East. 3-time All-Star Donovan Mitchell, and still 3 years left on his contract. That's important to note. Lineup that includes Garland, Allen, as well as future All-Star Evan Mobley. Sam, is this a win-now move? And what do you think the expectations should be for the Cavs, and what do you think Kobe Altman expects, going out? You gave up a lot, but you got one of the better players in the league.
It's a win now move, but it's also a move for the future. You made this move without impacting your young core, as we just went over with Garland, Allen, and Mobley. Those guys were your big 3. Well, now you have a big 4, and when you do that, you not only expect to, and it's a younger core, so you not only expect to be still around and still contending in the future, but yeah, you want to do that right away, and you have the potential to do that right away. They are going to be an Eastern Conference contender right away on paper. They have a good mix, not only of the guys we're mentioning, but they've got some good vets. Once Ricky Rubio gets back, Raul Neto, who they picked up this offseason, is a nice player, Robin Lopez, and then you throw in the guys who are holdovers like Kevin Love. They have a nice mix of guys who are not so dynamic, but are older veterans who have been there before that will help this core along. And when you throw all that together, Dave, on paper, yes, this team is a contender for the Eastern Conference Finals and maybe beyond.
So Donovan Mitchell, the question is, what's Donovan Mitchell? We'll find out what he thinks about this trade. But it's kind of interesting. So Donovan Mitchell tweeted this out in reference to the trade, and it is a picture of him wearing a Cleveland Cavalier. I'm going to assume it's a LeBron jersey because of the era, next to Brian Windhorst as well. But what have you heard about the reaction Donovan Mitchell had to being brought into a young core?
Well, we heard Brian Windhorst had said, Donovan Mitchell was on the golf course when he found out about the trade and celebrated wildly when learning that the Cavs did not give up Evan Mobley or Darius Garland or Kevin Love as part of the deal back to Utah. So he was very excited, and this has been great for Brian Windhorst, if you ask me, to get his picture tweeted out by Donovan Mitchell. But, by all accounts, Mitchell's very excited. He and Garland have been taking parts in some workouts already this offseason. So, we saw Donovan Mitchell retweet Darius Garland, who mentioned the trade. So there's a lot of excitement, not just from the fans' perspective, but the players' perspective as well, because Garland and Mitchell know they could be the future of the East when it comes to all-star backcourts, and I think they're very excited about playing together. Yeah,
the one guy on the Cavs who has played with Donovan Mitchell is Ricky Rubio, and Rubio again injured but will be back. Tweets this out, and that's Mitchell's Twitter handle is Spider Mitchell. He said he's going to love Cleveland. The other thing about this, I don't think Donovan Mitchell has played with this collection of talent. I know, he played with Rudy Gobert, but his offensive game is limited. You're putting him in a situation where he's going to enjoy some freedom.
Yeah, he has not played with this kind of talent. You talk about Darius Garland, you talk about Mobley, and even Jared Allen, not necessarily a great offensive player, but just a guy who can, score off energy points and really help you out defensively as well, as can Mobley. This is going to be a whole new world for him, and the one thing I do like about Mitchell is obviously on the court, you love all this stuff. Off the floor, I think, or in the locker room, he fits right in. Here's a guy who was knowing that the Jazz were trying to trade him, but yet was still just fine with going back to Utah in a rebuilding situation if that's what it required. He's not, he's not one of these guys who's always demanding trades or wanting to get out or having issues with teammates and stuff. I know he had some friction, a little bit of friction with Gobert, but I think that was more on Gobert. He's a team player through and through. As good as he is individually, he's a team guy. And, look, Ricky Rubio saying you're going to love Cleveland. Of course, Ricky Rubio is going to say that because he kind of reinvented himself in Cleveland. So, this is a great spot to be right now for NBA players, the Cavs, because they're young, they're up and coming, they're talented, they're promising. So it's not surprising that guys like Rubio and Mitchell are excited to be in Cleveland.
Before we take a quick break, give us a little scouting report. What do we see on the floor from Donovan Mitchell? Cavs fans have to know the name, but they may not know the game, if you will.
Yeah, I think if you really want to find out, the first thing to do would be check Bernie Kosar's Twitter account, because he tweeted out some pretty awesome highlights of Mitchell, which I retweeted. But, look, he is a superb athlete. And when I say that, I'm talking about a guy who, 6'1", but numerous times you will see him follow up, missed shots with dunks. He can drive in the traffic. He's one of those guys who posterizes a lot of guys. He can make you fall down off the dribble with the way he kind of does his step back threes. Just a very flashy, dynamic guy. Who also plays and stays within, kind of the team concept. He's not gonna, he's not a selfish player at all. He distributes the ball fairly well. I just think really with him and Garland together, they're going to really have just a dynamic backcourt in the sense that it's very well rounded and guys who can do a little bit of everything, and they do everything very well. So, just look for a lot of flash and a lot of sizzle from him, but also a lot of productivity along the way.
Sam Amico from hoopswire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, this Cavs team's not only good, it's also really young. We'll dive into a little bit of that. Plus, how do the Cavs fill out the rest of the roster to try to build around these guys? Sports4CLE. Talking Cavs. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Cavs with Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. So the Cavs projected starting lineup, this from Sporting News, and take a look at this. It's really good, but the thing that's really impressive, it is really young. 22.6 is the average age. Nobody older than 25. Sam, we've talked about the fact that you have 3, potentially 4 All-Stars. I would argue those are 3 or 4 All-Stars who are still ascending. Is that accurate to say? Still getting better?
Yeah. I mean, you would expect Evan Mobley will take, I don't want to say a leap because he doesn't, but he will be improved from a second-year player. You would think that Garland last year was his breakout season. We'll build off that. You talk about Jared Allen, hopefully fully healthy all season this year, and still, he improved last year from the year before. So yeah, you're exactly right, Dave. All of these guys theoretically are getting much better, and they're getting experience together, which really counts for a lot when you're talking about playoffs, the postseason. It really comes down to being familiar with each other. So there might be a little bit of growing pains at the start of the year, integrating a huge superstar. I don't want to call him a huge superstar, but an all-star in Donovan Mitchell. You've got to kind of squeeze that player in. You still have Karis LeVert coming back, obviously, could start, could come off the bench. There are a lot of guys who are going to have to kind of, I don't want to say completely redo their, but they're have to kind of take steps back and find ways to fit in together. That'll be up to Coach Bickerstaff to figure all that out. But so a lot of promise, yes, absolutely.
So this is another interesting thing. There's only 2 teams in the NBA that currently have 3 2022 NBA All-Stars on their roster. One of them, the Golden State Warriors. They did pretty well a season ago. The other, now the Cleveland Cavaliers. Sam, Mitchell is a guy that is used to taking the big shot and is used to shoulder. He is used to being the guy. So, and it doesn't seem like the Cavs are going to have any issues with him assuming that role. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him because of the talent around him now.
Yeah, and that's just the thing. You have really two guys. When you're down a point with 3 seconds left, you have two guys you can go to, and Garland and Mitchell are going to be your first two options there, and it'll probably be a situational thing. You could probably throw Mobley in that conversation as well. So that's the good news, is you have guys who can make clutch baskets, can create their own shots when you need, and you have more than one, in your backcourt. So it's like I said, it's going to take a little bit of an adjustment, but I for everybody involved. But when you talk about having 3 All-Stars and potentially 4 with Mobley, you are glad to make those adjustments as long as you're winning games. And that's something that the Cavs should be doing plenty of. And when you win games, I've been covering the NBA long enough to know guys are just naturally happier with their teammates, with their coach, with every situation when you're winning. And the Cavs have an opportunity to do that. They're already a locker room full of, their culture's been great, and Mitchell will only add to that as well. So there's a lot of promise, as you just mentioned, not just because they all get along and should win a lot, but because they're so young. It really makes you think that, boy, for the next 7 to 10 years, you keep this core together, and you're going to do some special things.
Let's take a look at the entire roster. So we've kind of delineated what likely the starting 5 is, and you look at the length of the roster. You got Kevin Love, Karis LeVert, Robin Lopez, Isaiah Mobley, Ricky. You have some veteran guys that were they're going to morph themselves into roles. Is there anything that you look at with this group that you say, the Cavs may be looking to add this to this group to kind of make it even better?
Yeah, I think that there's, the one thing, and it's not a glaring weakness or anything, but I think the one thing that you would like to add is another perimeter shooter, probably from the wing. A veteran guy who's maybe 6'5", 6'7" range, who really is only going to, probably with this group would play 10, 12, 14 minutes a game and just kind of help you spread the floor a little bit. Obviously, you have Kevin Love who can do that. Dean Wade, when he comes back healthy, can do that. You can't leave Garland open for the perimeter, or Mitchell either. And Mobley, we've heard, has been really working on his perimeter shot, extending his outside range. So, I think if you look for a veteran guy, it wouldn't be a big surprise if you're the Cavs. Maybe a guy who's, late 20s, early 30s, is out there, is an easy guy to sign just to help spread the floor a little bit. That would probably be the one thing that they could still use. They were going to rely on Abaji for that a little bit, as a guy who's kind of a knockdown shooter, but he was sent to Utah in the trade. So that might be an area that they're looking to address. Nothing big or splashy that gets the fans super excited, but a guy who fills a need off the bench as a perimeter shooter could be something that they either sign before training camp or bring along during the season.
Any names pop in your head that fit that role that we should listen out for?
Well, the first guy that I always think of is Wayne Ellington, which is going to excite nobody because he's an older guy, but he's available. He would come cheap, and I don't know that they are targeting him, but those are the kind of players, if you think about what Wayne Ellington does, which is not a whole lot but hit outside shots, and he's a veteran player who's been in winning situations. We have a whole free agency list by position on the website, the current available free agents. And, if you go through that, you pick out the guys who are pretty steady outside shooters, those are the kind of guys that the Cavs would be interested in to fill that role. But yeah, as far as names right now, I think that they're pretty well set. They feel like they're pretty well set going into training camp at the end of the month. So I would be surprised if they add anybody right now, but there's still a possibility they could invite an older veteran to camp, or if not, sign somebody to a very low-level veterans minimum contract once the season gets rolling.
All right, before I let you go, Mitchell's about 6'1", Garland's about 6'1". Any concern about playing that small backcourt, or do Jared Allen and Isaiah Mobley erase those concerns?
Yeah, Mobley and Allen help you in terms of protecting the basket. The Cavs are going to miss a little bit of Markkanen. They had that triple tower thing last year going. That's gone. Now you've got a twin tower. But, it's not that big of a deal because both of those players, especially Mitchell, plays a lot bigger than 6'1" in terms of just his style and his athleticism. It's okay to be small if you're good, and he's very good. So I don't think it's a big deal. I do think it's not going to be a huge loss or anything, but, I think that they will miss that extra defender and marking an extra 7-footer near the basket a little bit. It's just going to take a little bit of adjusting, and hopefully either Okoro or LeVert will start and fill that small forward role with some extra defense, and you're going to be just fine.
Sam Amico, hoopswire.com, as always, great stuff. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Thanks, Sam.
All right, thanks a lot for having me, and we will talk to you soon.
All right, Sam Amico, make sure you check out hoopswire.com. As he mentioned, has all the free agent listings that you could want to check out the Cavs. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. We turn our attention to the Browns. Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports4CLE continues. We turn our attention to the Browns. The holiday weekend off, and then it is game week. They get ready for week 1 against the Carolina Panthers. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns and the start to the season with Jacoby Brissett.
Hi, this is Ricky. I'm just calling in regards to some fans saying that the season is lost or a throwaway season. I'm just really confused as to why some fans would think that way. I understand that Watson is suspended for the first 11 games, but in my humble opinion, Jacoby can at least win 5 to 6 games with the ceiling being 7. Basically, I'm just a little upset at the fan base for thinking that without Watson, this season is lost. What are your thoughts? Thank you. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. So, Kay, you heard the question. What are your thoughts about that and the approach to those first 11 games?
Well, I think that the Cleveland Browns are so strong in so many areas, including what I believe is going to be a pretty dominant defense this season, that I don't think that you can count this a throwaway season at all. They've got that tremendous running game. Now, there are a few issues on the offensive line right now, but with a really good running game, some nice weapons on offense, and a dominant defense, you can win some football games. So I don't see any reason why Jacoby Brissett can't win 5 games. And then, if Deshaun comes back and things go the way everybody hopes that they go when he comes back, maybe he can win 5 games. Maybe somehow you could even get 6 out of those first 11 when he's gone, although it's not going to be easy. I will say that it will not be easy. After the first 4 sort of easy games, they head into this gauntlet of really, really tough teams. But I don't think it's a throwaway season by any stretch.
Having said that, this offense likely won't be as explosive with Jacoby Brissett. I think everybody realizes that. How do the Browns work around that? What are some areas that are keys to make sure that you maximize your chances of winning those first 11?
Well, I think one of the things that they're going to have to do is get the ball a lot to their tight ends, and I think that will really help. I think if they get David Njoku and Harrison Bryant really involved in the passing game and hit them in stride with some intermediate passes where they can then get some yards after catch, you can count those as your more explosive plays. I think that you can consider both of those guys also downfield threats. I mean, if you can Jacoby Brissett should be able to get the ball to them in, downfield where only they can get it, utilizing their height and whatnot. They can play some tall ball now. I mean, you've got a tall quarterback and you've got, your taller tight end, so they can do those kinds of things. And then Jacoby's he's going to have to find ways to get the ball to Amari Cooper on some more sort of explosive type plays. Eventually, once Anthony Schwartz kind of gets himself back together, then, you'll be able to kind of take advantage of his speed as well.
I know you've addressed this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Do you think the Browns make the playoffs this year? And again, what are some of the boxes that need to be checked if the Browns are, in fact, going to be a playoff team?
Well, the number one thing the defense has to do, in my opinion, is keep getting the ball back and giving it to the offense. So they've got to get those takeaways. That's imperative. If you're getting takeaways and winning the turnover battle, you are winning the football game 80% of the time. So even that might sound simplistic, it's really not. I mean, that's where you can make your hay. If you don't feel like you necessarily match up with some of the other teams or some of the other quarterbacks, if you can get some takeaways, if you can punch the ball out, if you can get some strip sacks, some interceptions, that's where, your defense can really help your offense while it waits for Deshaun Watson to get back. And then, when you have the running game that you do with Nick and Kareem, I mean, focus on those guys and see how it goes. I mean, it's going to take a little while to figure out who they are and what they are. So we'll have to see in those first few games.
Do you think the playoffs are a realistic chance, given that Jacoby Brissett will be your starting quarterback for 11 games?
I think there's a chance. I certainly think there's a chance. I don't know if 9 games is going to get it done this year for one of those wild card spots or, whatever the case may be. I kind of think that you have to aim for 10 victories if you think you're going to get at least a wild card spot in the playoffs, because I think the Ravens will be back this year. I think the Bengals will continue to be good. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to be an easy out necessarily like everyone thinks they will be, just because they're having quarterback issues. They still have a good running game and some good weapons on offense, and they're really good defense. So I don't think that you can necessarily, count those as 2 victories. So I think they can make the playoffs, but I think they have to aim for 10 wins to do it.
Not a lot of experience at quarterback behind Jacoby Brissett. You've got Dobbs, Mond, and Josh Rosen on the practice squad. 2 questions. How concerning is that, the lack of experience? And also, do you see a package where Joshua Dobbs is used because of his unique skill set?
Yeah, I've been talking about this for a little while on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, that I really think that they should put in a package of plays. And we haven't discussed it. It got someone asked Kevin Stefanski about it yesterday, really for the first time, but I'd been talking about it for a couple of days or weeks or whatever, that I do think that they should put a package of plays in for Joshua Dobbs to take advantage of his mobility and to change up the pace. Now, if you have a Joe Burrow as your starting quarterback or Josh Allen as your starting quarterback, you don't need to do that. But in the event that you want to give a defense or a head coach a lot to prepare for during the week and have them thinking about something else besides Jacoby Brissett and his skill set, then I just think it makes sense. I think that they should have the Panthers thinking a lot about that package.
You concerned at all about the lack of experience relative to NFL starts, just behind Jacoby Brissett?
Yes, I am. And I think that they should have brought in an experienced veteran quarterback that's gotten the job done before. And that way, if something happens with Jacoby Brissett, you're all set. I actually would have traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. I would have given up a later round pick for him and tried to give him a contract similar to the one that he got from the 49ers. I mean, why not give him $6.5 million guaranteed and then incentives if he plays a lot of games? So, I would have done that because, this season is important and you really do want to show your fans and your players that you're doing whatever it takes to get to the playoffs and the Super Bowl.
What's the latest on Jack Conklin? Is there a chance that the outstanding right tackle who was banged up most of last year, is there a chance he can go week 1 against the Panthers?
I think there's a chance, but that's still to be determined. And I think that once they get back on Monday, we'll start to have a better idea, although we might not know all the way up until game time. They need to see him practice in team a little bit more. They need to see how the knee holds up. Does it swell up? How does it respond? So I don't think anybody really knows yet. And so he's not locked in there at this point. And if he's not ready to go, it will either be Chris Hubbard, he's been resting up a little bit, or James Hudson, I would think.
Well, everybody's been clamoring for a wide receiver, given the way that room is set up. It doesn't appear that they're going to that they didn't like any. I think a better way to put it, it appears that Andrew Berry wasn't sold on anybody that was out there and available. Do you think the Browns look for another wide receiver or another veteran, or are they rolling with what they have, at least for the first couple weeks?
Well, we've been talking about this forever, obviously, all the way through the whole entire offseason. I've always said that I thought that they needed another veteran receiver. I would have brought in someone like a Cole Beasley, who is going to go out there and get the job done. Now, he's up there in some years, but he had a really good season last year. So I probably would have done something like that, where you just know that when the fur is flying and the lights are on, that you're going to get the kind of performance that you need. And right now, especially with Anthony Schwartz struggling, I do think that they could have used another quality veteran receiver in the room. I still think that, I would probably still be trading for one. So I feel like they left themselves a little short in a couple of areas. It doesn't mean that can't change, but for right now, that's one thing that I would still try to do.
You wrote a really interesting story on Michael Woods and kind of some of the hurdles that he has faced. You can see that and read that story on cleveland.com. Take us through that and just kind of how amazing it is that he's here and on the 53-man, ready to contribute, it looks like.
Yeah, one of the most compelling interviews I've ever done with a player. I mean, not many players have a story quite like this. There was so much to it. I had a great conversation with Michael Woods, who I think fans are just really going to like this young man. He's just a really neat kid. And so we just started talking during training camp. During an interview, I requested a one-on-one with him, and we just kind of sat at one of those couches that you sit on at training camp there to do those interviews. And we just got to talking. One thing led to another. And before you know it, he was sharing with me his story of how when he was 4 years old, he was found at the bottom of the family pool in the backyard. And, he saw himself from above. They got him out of the pool after some amount of time. Nobody's really quite sure exactly how long it was. But the paramedics were able to revive him, but then he had to be put into a medically induced coma where he remained for about 10 days. During that time, his mom had a vision that he was running with a football. And it's just a very compelling story about how he overcame this. He was in the Children's Miracle Network program at Texas Children's Hospital. He overcame this and he went on to become one of the better athletes in the area there in Magnolia, Texas, which is outside of Houston. And then, he tells the rest of his story. And I was just really honored to tell it. And then and his mom was phenomenal too. She filled in all of the blanks and gave me all the color and the detail of what happened at the pool that day and what they were doing and how they were doing it and who was there. And so it just turned out, even better than I could have hoped because of how they were so forthcoming and willing to share the story. And afterwards, I asked his mom, was this the first time this story has ever been told? And she said yes. And so I was honored to be able to tell it, and I hope people enjoy it.
Great story again, and you can read the full story on cleveland.com. Mary Kay Cabot and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we will continue talking Browns. We'll look forward into that matchup with the Carolina Panthers. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Maybe cliche, but there's no I in team. The only identity that matters is we. The collective effort to love thy neighbor is needed now more than ever. The responsibility behind pronouns such as I, me, and mine impact we, us, and ours. So understand that you make all the difference in the team. He, him, her, or she can't disturb our peace, since we control our destiny as student athletes. This is the power of pronouns.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This caller answering the question I asked a couple of days ago, what's the recipe for the Browns to win the first several games?
Hello, this is Chris from sunny South Florida. I was just wanting to talk about the recipe for success that you had Jeff Lloyd on the program yesterday. I think he touched on some important tools to have success, but the most important thing is the discipline and the cleaning up of penalties. Last year, we were one of the top teams in penalties, and we got destroyed because of that. And we lost a lot of games because of the penalties. So I think the recipe for success, and Jeff Lloyd is right for the other things, is the discipline and cleaning up the penalties. Thank you very much. Go Dogtown.
All right, as always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, what about that, especially given that you're going to want to run the ball? I think the point is you don't want to get in third and long, and you don't want to give first downs and keep your defense on the team, or on the field, rather.
Yeah, you know what? They don't have a whole lot of margin for error. They are going to have to stay away from the penalties. They're going to have to stay away from the turnovers. I mean, those two things are going to be absolutely crucial. And the mental errors. They have to play smart sound football. That's one of the reasons why they put so many smart guys on the team, because they don't want all those MEs or mental errors. So this team, at least in the early going, when they're all learning each other and trying to come together, they're going to have to try to figure out how to do this without getting all those yellow flags all over the place. And think about it. I mean, you're going to have a new center. So you've got to make sure that the snap exchange is going to be going well. As we mentioned before, Jack Conklin might not be out there yet. You've got Jed Wills coming back and trying to rebound from a difficult season. So there are some question marks along the offensive line. But so I would say that, those are very, very key areas, penalties and takeaways.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about week one, the Browns and Panthers.
Hey, how you doing? This is Harry Davis, longtime Browns fan. I have the question. I'm wondering why all these sportscasters believe this first Carolina Panthers game is Baker Mayfield versus Jacoby Brissett. That's not what it is, because at the end of the day, I played football for a long time. It's more than that. It'd be different if Baker had an equal offensive line like he did when he came from the Browns. Now he's gone to a significantly weaker offensive line. So it's not Baker versus Jacoby Brissett. It is Baker Mayfield. Can they block for him? Can they stop Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett from hitting Baker? That's more of what it is than quarterback versus quarterback. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, the Browns know what they know Baker Mayfield better than anybody. And you can be sure they're going to try to expose the things he does not do well. Fair to say that?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And, you really can't 100% change your stripes. He was only traded to the Panthers on July 6th. And even though he spent time in the offseason just, overhauling his throwing motion and doing all those kinds of things, I still think that, when you get in the heat of the moment, you revert back to the things that you've always done. And they do know a lot of those things. They know what his weaknesses are. They know that, he is really good when he's out on the keepers, on the bootlegs and the rollouts. But if you take that away and you try to hem him in, that he struggles. Another thing that I've watched him do so many times over the 4 years is that when he gets a little too hyped up, he just airmails it in the, he guns it in the red zone, and he just gets, too eager to throw it in there. And he doesn't have, just the touch on the pass that you would need, to throw some of those red zone touchdowns. So I don't know if he's corrected that part about himself, but that was always something. I mean, I'm sure you have visions and memories of him just firing it out the back of the end zone or throwing it so hard that the receiver just can't catch it. So those are some of the things that he doesn't do well. I mean, and if you can keep him in there, you can get some of your taller guys like Alex Wright batting down passes. And I think that's going to be vitally important. So, these are things that you want to do. I think they should take a page from the Pittsburgh Steelers playbook. Even though Myles Garrett said, it was a different defensive front, I think you can borrow from what they did in Baker Mayfield's last game in a Browns uniform.
I know you've talked about this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast as well. How do they use Baker Mayfield's words as motivation, or do you think they don't?
I think they do. I asked Myles Garrett one-on-one about that last week, and he said, we will take it and we will use it. He said, I don't hold it against Baker for saying those things. That's how he gets himself fired up. But it will get us amped up too, and we will use it. And, these guys, they'll use anything to get themselves fired up. And as far as we also asked Greg Newsome about it too, and he said he would use it. And I said, even though Baker walked it back and said he didn't say that, and he was like, yep, we'll still use it. They're not going to, buy into the notion that he did not say that. They believe that he did say, or at least they will. That's their story, and they're sticking with it. for the opener. So it adds a little spice to the game.
Without question. So the Browns have worked out a veteran tight end yesterday, Jesse James, not the outlaw, but the former Pittsburgh Steelers tight end. Do you think they're still looking to sign a veteran? And this guy would be more of a blocking guy. When you think of Bryant and Njoku, they get down the field. Do you think the Browns are looking to add to that tight end room?
Well, they also have two guys on the practice squad in Miller Forrestall and Zaire Payton Mitchell. So they've got those two guys as well. I don't know if they're going to sign Jesse or not. We might hear something about that later today. They could do it. I'm not sure what the game plan is there, but I think that they will end up with 3 tight ends on the roster for a game.
Fair enough. What other areas of the roster do you think they're looking to upgrade that might be more critical?
I don't think there's a lot of places. I really don't. I think they're pretty deep in most spots. I mean, they could probably use an experienced backup center. I've always long thought that they could use a veteran defensive tackle, and I have no idea if Sheldon Richardson has stayed in shape and by the phone, but he's somebody that I always thought would be good there. In fact, I said this on our pod yesterday, I would have traded for Jimmy Garoppolo, signed Sheldon Richardson, and I would have signed Cole Beasley or somebody of that ilk that could come in here and just be a sure-handed, surefire, got to have the play, you're going to get it for me kind of guy. So those are a few things I would have done, but I don't necessarily see them clamoring for any of those spots.
All right, this is from the Bleacher Report. 10 rookies who are looking like draft day steals. One of them is one of the Browns, defensive end, Alex Wright, and he has flashed a little bit. What are your thoughts on what you have seen from Wright and the type of impact he may be able to make?
Well, I think he's got tremendous upside potential. He looks the part. He had a really nice camp. He had nice preseason games. I often see him getting pressure or getting his hands up, and he really has done a nice job. And there's been plenty of times where Myles Garrett hasn't been around, and he's been able to work with the ones and show what he can do against the starters. So I think the potential is there. But the truth is, you don't really know how these rookies are going to respond until the real lights are on and they're in a game. And sometimes it doesn't happen for them until maybe even midway through a season or later in the season. And as Assistant General Manager Glenn Cook observed yesterday, they're not looking to necessarily hit their stride in week 1. They have to figure out who they are as a football team with so many new guys and so many new things going on. You want to hit your stride mid-season and second half of season.
Fair enough. And again, very valid point, difference between regular season and preseason in the NFL. All right, before we let you go, what do we expect to see from Joe Woods' defense? Last year there were a bunch of new guys. This year, a lot of guys returning, a lot of guys familiar with one another. Does that equate to getting a little more exotic, if you will, and trying to put a little more pressure on, or is that just not what Joe Woods does?
Yeah, I think that they can do things like that this year. I think they can put more on the plate of JOK. I think now they've got a very versatile linebacker in Jacob Phillips out there that can do some different things. So I think you'll see, exotic, that can be a word for it. I think they'll change up looks on the defensive front a fair amount. And I think you'll see some subtle nuances in the back end, and they might not even be that subtle. So I think you'll see some different things going on with, how they approach coverage. And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out in the first couple of games. And I'm very eager to see what he has in store for Baker Mayfield.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Always follow her, take a read. You'll get the best Browns info from her. Mary Kay, thanks so much. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot again, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Other side of the break, Lance Reisland with a film breakdown of rookie David Bell. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery, part Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports4CLE continues, and we continue talking Browns. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland. Lance, the rookie wide receiver David Bell is a guy that Kevin Stefanski has liked. Was banged up a little bit in camp, but has come back, gotten on the field, and by all accounts getting ready to be a contributing factor come regular season. What did you see from him when you saw him out in camp that kind of made you go, I see exactly what the Browns like in him?
Well, I thought he's got, first round potential. The only thing that really kept him from being a first rounder was that 40 time, that 4.65 40 time. And it's very misleading because he's very football fast. At camp, I saw a guy who was very polished in his routes. He understands coverages. He understands what people are doing to him. He has very good body control. He creates separation using that body control and spatial awareness. He's got great hands. And my number one thing I like about David Bell is he was very productive at Purdue. He had 232 catches for almost 3,000 yards in the Big Ten, which is a very good conference. So I like his productivity, and he's just a very polished route runner.
So you saw everything that, as a coach, would lead you to believe, yeah, I see why this guy was the leading receiver in the Big Ten when he was a senior.
Absolutely. And what he does, he uses his body so well in space, and he having that understanding of what a defense is trying to do to you in both man and zone coverage. You understand where leverage is. You understand where secondary people are coming from. So he understands that when he's at the line of scrimmage. And the more you watch him the more I watched him at practice, I was just impressed with his ability to get open.
Well, and let's take a look at some of the things that you shot down at camp of David Bell. So first one, in the red zone, kind of working underneath. And what do you see there that you would point out in this particular route?
What I like here is that he drives vertical first. So the tendency when you run an out route or an arrow route is to attack that arrow quickly. And what it does is allows that defender to close on you very quickly. Him not having elite speed, he uses his body very well. So this is a great job of him driving at the defender. And as he drives at the defender, it kind of freezes that defender. And then he's, like I said, his body awareness, his spatial awareness is very, very good. His body control, I'm sorry. So he's able to create separation by driving forward at this defender.
And again, there we saw him kind of working inside at the slot. That's where the Browns will likely use him, and those are going to be the things that you're talking about are critical for a slot receiver, correct?
Yeah, another thing with him is he can run all the routes from inside and outside. He's a big enough guy where he can be a matchup problem for small corners. He's quick enough, and he's very good at separation, so he's very tough matchup for linebackers. So not only in the slot but outside, I think that overall that's one of his greatest strengths is his ability to work both inside and out.
All right, so another red zone route here from camp that you had, and this one he kind of is working underneath again. And what do you see from him there?
Well, this was actually a scramble drill. It was a very well covered route down in the red zone. One of the situational scrimmages the Browns did a bunch of during camp, and this is kind of a broken play. So he's just finding an opening and finding an opening for Watson to find him. And he does a very good job of this all the time in the scramble drills, where he just has a feel where the openings are. He has a feel with to show his numbers. He's very quarterback friendly, which allows him to get open. So this is just kind of him making a play in space, finding an opening for Watson.
And again, Watson is a guy that will keep plays alive, and that is something that will be a staple once Watson gets back. How important is that to be able NFL plays are going to break down almost as many times as they are going to go well. How important is it to show the ability that he had to become available for a quarterback?
Well, like you said, I think that's Deshaun Watson's number one quality of all the really good football qualities he has. His ability to improvise and make plays when the play's over, in terms of like the original read, is very, very special from him. So David Bell gives him a guy who is kind of on the same wavelength in terms of understanding coverage, where people are coming from, leverage. They work that scramble drill all the time in camp. So especially with a guy like Watson, you always have to keep yourself alive, because Watson will do that.
So we're going to take a look at another clip that you have here. This one, again, is a crossing route underneath. And what do you see there? You notice they put the speed guy, Anthony Schwartz, kind of crossing in front to take away defenders there.
Well, this is a pretty basic crossing route that the Browns run, that everybody runs. And what I like about him here is that he sits down because he sees zone coverage. So no one's with him. He's not going to run into coverage. He's not going to run into the next defender. This would be a great example of being quarterback friendly. He finds the hole, turns his numbers to the quarterback, and makes himself available for an easy throw, easy pickup here. Yeah,
and you mentioned zone coverage. So the other thing is he is already working on that. Catch it and then get the shoulders upfield. What's the coaching point after you've secured the football?
Well, we always talk about north and south. It's especially crucial at that level where everybody runs so well. So you got to catch the ball, get north and south. One move possibly, but just catch the ball, get north and south, especially an underneath route like that. The linebackers are coming, the secondary is coming. So catch it, get upfield, and get as much as you can.
A lot was made of his hands, particularly in minicamp. It was something ridiculous. Like I think he had one drop of all minicamp. Did you see that at training camp as well?
Yeah, he's got very good hands. Very like I said, he's always in the right spot. So he seems to make himself available for that quarterback, and he makes it an easy throw for the quarterback. So he's very easy to throw the ball accurately to him. And yeah, he's got great hands. He catches. He's a ball catcher. He doesn't let the ball get into his body too much. He's very well schooled at Purdue. So yeah, he catches it very, very well.
So you've mentioned a couple of times about kind of that knack for creating separation. And here, the next video that we're going to show is kind of a drill that is aimed at creating some of that separation in man coverage. What do you see there? What is the coaching point with this?
Like I talked about with Njoku last week, these guys, this is after practice, and these guys are all working at their craft, and it was very impressive to see them work on little things. And what he's working on here, and this would be a great example of David Bell being able to create separation without that elite speed. So this is kind of an out route, and we call it a lean route, and he's gonna lean into that defender who's in man coverage. And as he leans into that defender kind of gets pushed backwards, and then he can create separation in whatever way he's going. So this is a very savvy, very crafty move, something that veteran receivers do very well, but that's how he creates separation. He uses his technique and his body control and his spatial awareness to create that separation.
The other thing, and you alluded to it at the beginning of the segment, his 40 time is probably why he was available when the Browns drafted him. But there's a difference between your time on a clock and football speed, and you've pretty comfortable he's got the football speed you would want in a receiver in the NFL?
Well, a lot of speed in all football, but especially at that level. A lot of speed is understanding where you're going. And if you understand where you're going, you're able to run full speed. And he has a great knowledge of what secondary people are, what coverage they're in, who is in charge of him, what leverage are they coming from. So yeah, he has really good speed. 4.65 is really good speed. People think it's not. It's really good speed. But he has what I like call football speed, and that football speed comes from his ability to know what the defense is doing to him.
It also seems like he's got a little bit of the change of direction that we talked about with Amari Cooper. Did you also see that?
Yeah, that's one of his other really good traits, his ability to change pace. So in a route, he'll continuously change his pace from fast to slow to kind of throw that defender off. And he does a really good job of changing that speed. So if he's not always running at one speed, which allows him, again, to create separation.
And again, we're talking about a guy that is a rookie, and he's kind of got some of the savvy moves that you see from the veterans already. You would think, as he adds to that experience, that'll even get a little bit better.
Oh, yeah, he's got, Amari Cooper to me is the best route runner in the NFL. I mean, there's a lot of really good route runners, but Amari Cooper, especially seeing him at camp, he's so detailed in terms of what he does with his feet, the angles he attacks with. He attacks the opposite foot, the opposite hip. He creates blind spots for the defenders, and that's all technique, and that's all learned abilities. And he's only going to pass that on to not only to David Bell, but to Michael Woods and to DPJ, and the rest of those guys will also get that knowledge from Cooper for sure.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Coach.
As always, thanks for having me.
All right, Lance Reisland, check out his video breakdowns, also cleveland.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. No show Monday because of the Labor Day holiday. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you Tuesday. Browns start to prepare for the Panthers in that Week 1 matchup. Have a great night. See you Tuesday on Sports4CLE.